St. Augustine calls the Eucharist visible, or he calls the sacraments visible words. So they're an action, they're something you can see, they're a material thing, but they speak a truth. They say something to us. And so there are ways that we can actually live consistently with that visible word, or there are ways that our actual common life together can totally contradict it. So one example of that would be the bread is shared, it's passed around, everybody gets some, and nobody eats the whole thing. And if somebody went and took like the whole loaf and left like this much for everybody else to split, it'd be it would the Eucharist would look very strange that way.
Like capitalism. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So there's a way that our common life can contradict the content, I guess, of the Eucharist itself. And so I started to ask the question, okay, what kind of common life does the Eucharistic imagination, should it produce or live out? And what I tried to do was say it shows us a different way of being than the other dominant context that we live our lives in. So it gives us an alternative way of being to what modern capitalism gives us. In that example that I just gave, it talks about actual sharing, everybody having something to eat, everyone having a share in the bread. And so that's just a simple one, and it's one that many people have mentioned before. But I think what I might have said in the class is it also shows us how to value things differently than the society around us values things. So the people that form the core of the community at Sanctuary, and they actually form in our worship service, there's kind of central active participants in that as well. And not in ways where they've been polished up and tried to look like a middle-class church person, but they actually bring themselves in. They bring their, sometimes their drunkenness in, they bring their heckling. I can't count the amount of times I've been preaching and have been heckled by some random voice in the community, challenging what I'm saying or just making fun of me.
Keeps things interesting.
But it's good. I mean, those are actually the kind of gifts, as difficult as they are in the moment, that I value the most from my experience, because it's saying like, this office of preacher, which we've held up, maybe shouldn't be taken as seriously as we take it, because there are other voices. There are voices who actually are still on the margins, even in our churches, that have something to say and that need to be heard. So, sorry, I think I got distracted.
No, that's really in line with what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So people who are central, and it fits with the imagery of the Eucharist, because the body that's been broken by the violence of the world is at the center. It's on the table. It's the thing that gathers the community. And so people whose bodies have been broken and minds and emotions by the world and its violence and its injustice, they also should have a central place. If they don't, it's just as contradictory as if we don't actually share the bread. And so it teaches us to value people who are not valued in the rest of the world. It shows us what has most value. And yeah, it's gonna look different than the values of money, success, progress. Our society values independence. In a community like ours, you learn very quickly how interdependent we are, how much we actually all depend on each other. There are tons of different values that our world holds that I would say our community unsettles or transforms, if that makes sense. And it unsettles values from the church as well, I would say, the heroic posture being one of them. And there are others.
I always found that the stories we share in newsletters or whatnot usually indicate some kind of turnaround in someone's life. it's as if the stories that are of value to who we share to the general world have to have some kind of twist where at the end the person ends up, he was a troubled youth and eventually came and went through this program, got a job, and now is housing and thriving in certain places. There's always needs to be this upswing at the end of a testimony. And in a way, what I'm hearing from you too is just this idea of like when you just share stories, sometimes of despair, which doesn't fit a lot of certain people's theology in a way that if what you're ending the story with this person dying or this person like continuing to persist in whatnot. And if the only stories we hear are these upside stories, which just affirm this certain value system of everything working out in the end, then it's hard for people who are in, like, does it help? It gives me hope, right? Yeah, I guess it gives someone hope that something can happen. But at the same time, the idea of empathy and the idea of the cross allows us to linger also in the realities of despair, that can also be there.